This is WJZ TV, Baltimore.
In your community, where you live. Now, it's WJZ, Maryland's news station.
Icy interstate tragedy.
Check this out, y'all.
A tanker careens off 95. 2 people are killed. Over 60 vehicles involved. The horrifying scene, the cleanup, and the investigation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Vic Carter. Here's what people are talking about tonight. Tonight, new details about a horrific 67-car pileup on I-95 south of Baltimore. The chain reaction crash caused by freezing rain killed 3 people and sent more than a dozen to the hospital. WJZ is live with complete coverage. Meteorologist Chelsea Ingram has more on the chilly and icy temperatures that made for dangerous conditions on the roads. But we first begin with Devin Bartolotta, who is live at Shock Trauma with the latest. Devin.
Good evening, Vic. Just within the last half hour, WJZ has learned that all lanes of I-95 are now open. Now, emergency management calls this the worst accident in recent Baltimore history just because of the number of people that are involved, and the investigation is far from over.
Check this out, y'all.
A nightmare on ice-covered I-95 as a tanker flies off an overpass and bursts into flames. What followed, a violent 67-vehicle pileup near Washington Boulevard that left the tanker driver and another person dead.
It is just heartbreaking.
Marvelous Amasiatu pulled over on 95, watched it all happen.
This is a disaster.
He called 911 and shot this video as cars and semis drove through an inferno. Amasiatu speaking on camera exclusively with WJZ.
That was very, very traumatizing for me. Just able to shoot video and can reach out to help.
Semis, cars, trucks stretched more than half a mile, almost unrecognizable after violent crashes at highway speeds. More than 24 people, some seriously hurt, were taken to Baltimore hospitals.
It's a miracle more people weren't hurt or killed.
Baltimore's emergency management director tells WJZ in the midst of chaos, he saw heroes.
People were, helping people out of cars who weren't involved in the accident. There was one gentleman who I saw earlier that had his hands cut, bandaged. He was in the wreckage pulling people out.
Cleanup started fast. Forklifts scooped up crunched cars, lining them along the shoulder to clear the roadway. Stranded travelers waited for hours. About a dozen tow trucks waited for hours on the exit ramp for their turn to come help clean up the mangled cars still left on the highway. Below I-95, a different problem. The Maryland Department of Environment working to clean up fuel believed to be gasoline that spilled from the burning tanker into the soil.
It's apparent that there was some amount of fuel in the tanker because it got into the water and went downstream towards Carroll Manor Golf Course where we had some fires.
What's left of the charred tanker was hauled away late Saturday afternoon as the investigation continued.
Obviously, investigators are going to be days and possibly weeks and months to determine the cause of the crash.
A tragic mega pileup being called one of Baltimore's biggest crashes ever. Again, we want to give you a look at those numbers one more time just to recap. There were 67 cars involved in this accident today. 23 people were hurt. 7 of those people are here at Shock Trauma, and 4 of those people are in critical condition. Now, all of those numbers could change as this investigation continues. Again, at last check, just a few minutes ago, all lanes of Highway 95 are now open. Reporting live at Shock Trauma tonight, I'm Devin Bartolotta, WJZ Eyewitness News.
Devin, thank you. First warning weather coverage continues now with meteorologist Chelsea Ingram, who has more on the dangerous conditions leading up to that tragic accident. Chelsea.
Well, hi there, Vic. Hello, everyone. Here is a look at the setup from earlier this morning. Now, we did have some warmer air that moved in aloft, so a little bit higher up in the atmosphere, but we still had some very, very cold air right at the surface. So rain which did develop, it ended up freezing on contact, and that's what we call freezing rain. And this lasted for several hours this morning. Now, as a result, many areas picked up at least 1/10 of an inch of ice, if not more. In fact, Bel Air picked up over 1/4 of an inch of ice. BWI around 2/10. Same for Pimlico and Parkton. Glendon around 1/10 and Columbia around 1/10. But even just 1/10 of an inch of ice can cause some major problems and wreak major havoc on the roadway. And unfortunately, that's what we saw across the entire state throughout the day today. Now, temperatures still hovering very close to freezing, especially in those areas on the map that you see there in the blue. 33 at BWI, Thurgood Marshall Marshall Airport, 32 in Westminster. We do anticipate that these numbers are going to be rising during the overnight hours tonight, so that is great news. And I'll have more coming up on that in your exclusive First Warning forecast. For now, Vic, sending it back to you.
Chelsea, thank you. Snow, ice, and cold weather descended on a huge section of the country on this official last weekend of fall, causing deadly car crashes in a handful of states, including here in Maryland. The icy and cold conditions caused massive delays and accidents all along the East Coast, especially here in Maryland and Virginia. Maryland state troopers say they responded to more than 330 crashes statewide in the past 24 hours, including an early morning fatal bus crash along I-95 near Eastern Avenue.
We had a multi-vehicle crash up in that area. At that time, one of the operators out of one of the vehicles stepped out of their vehicle after the crash and tragically was struck and killed on the road.
On the Capitol Beltway in Virginia, one person was killed in a crash involving 23 cars in Fairfax County near Route 50. Police say a man walked a mile away from the crash and was found dead, but it is unclear how he died.
People were underestimating it, and just there was no braking control available for people on the road. Sliding into cars, people weren't ready for it.
Virginia's Department of Transportation did pre-treat the roads, but it wasn't enough. The same system that hit our area also dumped a half a foot of snow in the central part of the country. But the biggest threat was the frigid temperatures dropping to minus 20, the lowest it's been in December in 16 years.
We live in Minnesota, and we had a beautiful fall. Winter was about to come at some time.
The conditions across the country caused more than 2,000 cancellations of flights today and thousands more delays, according to FlightAware.com. And bundle up Baltimore, stay with WJZ for First Warning weather coverage of this bitter cold. For the latest temperatures and conditions, search WJZ Weather and download the CBS Baltimore app. A shooting and chase at Mondawmin Mall lands a suspect behind bars tonight. It happened around 5 p.m. near Shoppers and Marshalls. Police say a suspected shoplifter fired at least one shot at store employees as they chased him out of a store. An officer working at another store across the street witnessed the shooting and chased the suspect before arresting him. No one was injured in the incident, and a gun was recovered at the scene. New tonight, 2 people have been arrested in connection with the murder of an 83-year-old man. 46-year-old Derek Carter and 24-year-old Stephen Stawara are charged with first-degree murder. Investigators believe the 2 men entered James Herget's home in the 400 block of Cambria Street yesterday in an attempt to steal property. During the robbery, Herget was stabbed several times and the suspects fled. Police believe Carter and Stawara knew the victim. New details tonight. President Obama is strongly suggesting that Russian President Vladimir Putin was directly involved in the cyber attack that influenced the 2016 election. Errol Barnett reports to WJZ with the latest.
Not much happens in Russia without Vladimir Putin.
President Obama publicly vowed to strike back at Russia for interfering in the 2016 campaign and said he had warned Putin personally 2 months before the election.
In early September, when I saw President Putin in China, I felt that the most effective way to ensure that that didn't happen was to talk to him directly and tell him to cut it out.
The president assured Americans that each and every vote cast was legitimate, but that Moscow's election tampering should concern everyone, and questioned how some Republicans could believe Putin's public denials rather than the conclusions of the U.S. intelligence community.
Over a third of Republican voters approve of Vladimir Putin, the former head of the KGB. Ronald Reagan would roll over in his grave.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Continuing his thank you tour last night, Donald Trump avoided the topic of Russian hacking, though earlier in the day he acknowledged that the hack revealed damaging information about the Democratic National Committee. And Thursday wrote, if Russia or some other entity was hacking, why did the White House wait so long to act? Why did they only complain after Hillary lost?
Wouldn't it be nice if we actually got along with Russia?
Trump was criticized during the course of the campaign for cozying up to Russia.
I've stood up to Russia.
With Hillary Clinton suggesting he was Putin's preferred candidate.
They've also decided who they want to see become president of the United States, too, and it's not me.
President Obama said he did not think Clinton was treated fairly during the election, but cast blame on the U.S. media as well, saying coverage of her and the issues was troubling. The Baltimore National Cemetery held a wreath-laying ceremony today to honor and remember military heroes during the holidays. It's all part of National Wreaths Across America Day. The event was sponsored by Chevrolet and the local Baltimore Chevy dealers. The local dealerships have contributed 640 wreaths to the cause. The Wreaths Across America project began in 1992 when a Maine wreath maker donated 5,000 surplus wreaths to Arlington National Cemetery. First warning weather forecast is coming up. More than a dozen soldiers are dead and dozens more injured after a bombing in Turkey. Officials say a car bomb hit a bus carrying off-duty military personnel in the central part of the country. 13 people were killed and 48 more were injured. This attack comes 1 week after a similar incident that targeted police in Istanbul. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack. In Syria, there is now another agreement to completely evacuate civilians and rebels who remain trapped in the city of Aleppo. Sparks of violence in the area have halted previous evacuations. Jonathan Vigliotti reports for WJZ on the situation that only gets worse each day.
The evacuation in Syria requires civilians' trust that both sides of the war will uphold their promise of a ceasefire. But violence halted yesterday's first evacuation attempt. With today's new deal comes a path to exit for those trapped in the rubble, and along with it, new fears of coming under attack. The Assad regime and rebel fighters accused each other of opening fire. The truth is still unclear. The shelling began in the afternoon. A Syrian TV reporter there to cover what was supposed to be a ceasefire was unsure where it was coming from. But caught in the crossfire, a steady stream of buses and vehicles packed with people. Anything that moved was used to evacuate Syrians from East Aleppo, including ambulances that carried out the injured. But when the shelling began, the evacuation came to a halt. The Red Cross and Red Crescent forced to withdraw their aid. As many as 9,000 civilians and rebel fighters managed to escape before the ceasefire crumbled. Some found comfort on the other side. But for most, like Mohammed, a teacher at Aleppo University, it was heartbreak and shock.
I cried. I left my country. I left my homeland. I was kicked out of my country.
But leaving at this point is the only option, and Mohammed is lucky. When the evacuations were stopped yesterday, one bus that made it out was sent back in. Jonathan Vigliotti, WJZ Eyewitness News.
Last night, thousands of civilians spent the night in bombed-out buildings with little to protect them. Overnight temperatures plunged to below zero. 2 children are dead in Indiana after falling into an icy pond. Police say the 2 12-year-olds fell through the ice on Thursday at a home in Winslow. It's unclear why the boys were on the pond, but officials say one of the boys' mothers was watching when the incident occurred. No foul play is suspected. A building in Alaska is left completely destroyed after a massive fire. Take a look. Flames and smoke filled the sky yesterday morning in Fairbanks. Fire officials say they initially thought they were responding to a furnace malfunction. They believe that creosote railroad ties contributed to the spread of the fire. No injuries were reported. In his battle with cancer, one 5-year-old from Owings Mills builds up the energy to save Christmas. Marcus Washington has more on the little one's transformation into a superhero.
In a green superhero costume and a firefighter's hat, Super Kahim made his triumphant entrance. He's here to save the day. You see, rumor has it that Jolly St. Nick is in trouble, stuck on a Ferris wheel, and only Super Kahim can save the day. Can I walk with you? This is a powerful moment for any child, but for Kahim, it's extra special for this 5-year-old battling cancer. This heroic rescue all set up by the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Santa, now safe after the rescue, an emotional time for everyone.
You can see it in his eyes, how much he really appreciates it, and how much joy and how much laughter it puts in his life.
The cheers came from police officers, firefighters, and other first responders, all here to make this Little Heroes Day a little more special.
I didn't have to ask our firefighters to come do this. They jumped at the opportunity to be able to be involved in a Make-A-Wish.
From heroes to superheroes, the super team said they were pretty impressed.
There was definitely pride
In a world where there are too many bad guys, it's good to see one good guy rise up.
But Super Kahim's journey didn't stop there. After leaving Santa, he jumped aboard a D.C. fireboat, taking him to Washington, D.C. At the Capitol, he heard a message from House Speaker Paul Ryan and enjoyed some pizza. Kahim's mom says that this was also overwhelming.
His face, wow, I can't explain his face. He's just so happy, and it makes me happy.
For Kahim, he is all smiles.
It's been good.
A good day full of smiles for one superhero in the making.
In response to Super Kahim's rescue, both Vice President Joe Biden and Speaker of the House Paul Ryan sent tweets encouraging and congratulating the little superhero. The creator of the life-saving Heimlich maneuver has died. Dr. Henry Heimlich died early this morning at Christ Hospital in Cincinnati. His son says he suffered a heart attack earlier in the week. Heimlich was the director of surgery at Jewish Hospital in 1974 when he created the treatment for choking victims. He was 96. We're